This is Miss Lizzie, and I want to welcome you to the Queen Lizzie podcast. Together, we will go through the history of Rosewood, Florida, and watch as the once prosperous town rises out of the bloodshed, fire, and ash to reveal the people, the memory, and the legacy of Rosewood. Watch every Thursday on Facebook and YouTube, or listen to our story on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Hello, everybody. I am Lizzie Robinson Jenkins, representing not only the Rosewood Foundation, but the personal testimonies and history of cherished friends and family. You are now watching the Queen Lizzie podcast. Today, we are talking with Dekova Batey. Welcome, Dekova, to the Queen Lizzie podcast.
Thank you.
I am honored to have you as my guest today.
Glad to be here.
Okay, and Dekova, I would like for you to share with us your connection or your involvement in this great community of Alachua County.
Okay. Well, I'd like to first start out by saying thank you for the invite. My name is Dekova Batey. I am a lifelong resident of the Alachua County area. I had the pleasure of living in a couple of cities in the area, Gainesville, Waldo, Micanopy. And the thing that really just makes me connected really to the community is just being involved civically, being a part of a lot of community, volunteer, philanthropic type opportunities that really gave me a bird's eye view of what's going on in our community, how we were formed, and what's very vital to making sure we continue to live and to thrive.
And connect. And that's what we have done recently. We reconnected
Yes.
in a class a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Through the chamber,
Yes.
the Greater Gainesville Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
We were in the same class.
Yes.
And my color was red. What was your color?
My color was red as well.
Oh, okay.
We were in the same group of the class of 48 of the leadership program.
Yes, and I had Joe Johnson on. He was my guest a couple of weeks ago, and I told him, I remembered he was red. I said, make sure you wear your red shirt, Joe. We had a wonderful time reflecting on what happened and the places I didn't know existed in Gainesville. Right. As you said, it brought us together, and I know that you are very involved. I know that you are not a part of my board, not yet, but soon will be. And you know a lot about Rosewood and about some of the histories during your life here in Gainesville. And I always keep Rosewood history alive. This is what my show is all about, but I talk about other things.
Right,
okay?
right.
And I want to hear about your mom. You were telling me something this morning about your mother attended school in, I'll let you tell me.
Yes. So my mother was born here in Alachua County, a rural part of Alachua County called Arredondo.
Yes.
And she lived part of her life in Orange Park, just south of Jacksonville. And she had an opportunity to do some integration with that move, integrated Orange Park High School, integrated one of the elementary schools, I believe, in Green Cove Springs, had an opportunity to integrate the school bus as far as, persons of color were supposed to sit to the back.
Yes.
Her stepmother was very, very in a leadership role in the community, and she demanded that she get a chance to sit up front.
Okay.
Her stepmother went to Tuskegee.
Okay.
I believe she also went to a college in New York studying English, and she actually graduated from Edwards Waters College, and I think she did something like social work or what have you. She did 35 or so years at Community Action Agency with Putnam Clay counties. So she was extremely involved in the community. And that type of example is what kind of led me to be very involved in our community. And as you said, not a member of the Rosewood Board, but I just feel like I'm an unofficial participant. In the past years, I've been very active in groups such as the Pleasant Street Historical Society in Gainesville,
Yes.
one of the original black neighborhoods in Gainesville, learning the history, learning a lot of the groundbreaking history that paved the way for a lot of people, including African Americans such as myself.
Right.
So similar to the Rosewood Foundation, as well as the Cotton Club Museum and Cultural
Yes.
Center
Yes.
under the leadership of Queen Vivian Filer, the storyteller.
Right.
And also just participating in many other community oriented groups,
Yes.
so that I can learn more and know where to go. If you don't know your history,
Yes.
you may be doomed to repeat past mistakes.
Exactly.
So I'm learning and I'm growing so that I know which way to maneuver, not to be perfect, but to know how to make, better choices or study better.
Exactly. And speaking of Pleasant City, my Rosewood, and people think because she was a teacher there that she's from Rosewood. She is from Archer, Alachua County,
Okay.
born in Archer, 1894.
Wow.
And speaking of Pleasant Street, after 25 or 23, 22 years of running, after the Rosewood massacre from the conspirators that followed her for the rest of her life, even at the post office, they opened her mail in order to keep up with her.
Wow.
People don't know Pleasant Street. She lived on Pleasant Street.
Okay.
I have 5 addresses. She lived on Court Street. She lived on, what else? Ardonna Street. She lived on 3 more. Right there in Gainesville, because she continued to move. She moved because she knew people were following her.
Wow.
It did not stop them from following her, but she moved. And when she was living on Court Street, I have the address. It says 520 North Court Street, okay? And when she was living there, I have a directory where it tells her employment. She changed her name more than 5 or 6 times. And when she was living on Court Street, her name was not Maholda Carrier on that envelope. And in that directory that I have a copy of, it says Hulda Carroll.
Wow.
But her husband's name was the same, Aaron Carroll, however. They
Wow.
changed from Carrier, trying to elude their conspirators. And also on that chart, in that directory, it says employment, UF.
Wow.
I have that. And I'm going to get in touch with UF and let them know they owe her because she taught school. She taught the young football players, the young men. It was an all-male school
Okay.
in the basement so that she could not be seen by the
Wow.
other students. And she went dressed as a maid, but my mom said, oh, she was their teacher. They knew she was a teacher.
Wow.
Okay, and she was like doing remedial teaching.
Wow.
Okay, and I've been able to locate it at the University of Florida? No, I haven't looked. I can't find the records, so I've been there looking to support. I like supporting evidence, but it is not there. And as I said, I'm going to get around to them to let them know that she was very significant in this town of Gainesville, and that's why I'm going to have to go to the county commissioner and let them know too. Hey, we need help with Rosewood.
Research.
This lady has given her life, okay, to Alachua County. She has worked extremely hard when she was not welcome. So it's time for us to step up to the plate and just recognize her. And you know about the museum. I think I have told you about the museum
Yes.
that we as we speak, that we are working on it. And I appreciate what you are doing and have done. And when I call, you answer the phone, you return my call. Did I miss a call? Of course you did, but you returned the call right back. And
Yeah.
we go from there.
Well, I remember during our leadership class, we took a trip out to the museum and walked the property, walked the house, beautiful facility. And I just like to take a moment to say, as I've shared with you before, very appreciative of the work that you do. It's very important, again, that we have a blueprint of what went on in our community, how we were able to survive to where we are now. And that museum is an opportunity to further tell that story. The work that you do is painstaking, and I'm sure it takes a lot of energy and a lot of strength trying to gather information and do the research. As you said, you're going to do it for the teacher, the instructor at UF, but it's worth it. And a lot of times, as in the Bible, the harvest is ripe, but the laborers are what? Plentiful? No, few. But it doesn't matter the quantity. It's the quality that matters. It reminds me so much of the work of, as I said before, Queen Vivian Filer with the Cotton Club Museum and Cultural Center, where this was a historic building that, lay dormant. And just connecting and doing tireless work such as yourself, she was able to establish a museum that is thriving with exhibits, information, history of our community, events. And that's the same that I can say about you. Even though the museum is in progress now, which will tell the story greater of Rosewood, you've been doing the work without a museum. And that is, I think, awesome. One of the things I talk to you about all the time is my love for civics. Just how important it is to appreciate learning about our community. So I grew up in the 80s here in Gainesville. And so now that I have the gray hair, getting older, I love to talk to the young people and encourage them. And I think what's very important is civics. Learning the history, learning what we need to do to be involved with our society today. So much social media, we have a lot of connections, but it doesn't have to be meaningful connections. It can be very surface. So with this type of museum, this type of program such as Rosewood, we're able to actually teach our young people what people did, such as in places where they weren't welcome, how they survived. How they were able to be leaders in a place where they weren't wanted. And now that we have all this access and freedom, what a shame it would be for us to slack up on having an impact.
Take for granted. They don't know how they got from point A to point B. Sacrifice, suffrage, our ancestors. Okay? I don't take credit for anything because, and I'm not embarrassed that my grandparents or my ancestors were enslaved. Because of them, we are. Had we not, and had they not. And you know what? I read often, and when I read, I always read how each and every one of them stressed education. Okay, they couldn't read. They were taught to read, stolen, and I never blame people for what happened, because had it not been for the other, the slave masters' wives, they were very helpful. They would slip and teach them, sneak and teach us, our ancestors, how to read, feed them too, whenever possible. There were some good people, and everybody was not bad. And we have to teach this to our kids today, and let them know, hey, the help that I get, you were talking about this morning, my help, and you know where it comes from, a lot of it. Sitting here today, who owns this? Who owns, I'm asking you, who owns this room?
Is there a young man named Steve Spurrier, famous from the Gators history?
Yes. This is his place, Spurrier.
Awesome.
And I encourage people to come here for brunch and have brunch. And they are very, very supportive of Rosewood, because I tell the truth. And they help Freddie Weeby. He is the director of Make It Happen Studio. And who else helps? Meldon Law. Okay. Meldon Law. If you don't know him, he is one of the supporters. Greg Bradley,
Yes.
Allstate Insurance, very supportive.
Yes.
Okay, so they are giving back. What we want us to do is to be able to help us. And you may go to Rosewood, Florida, FLORID, Florida, and donate. And we'll talk more about your donation later. But right now, it's about time for our first half. We are going to head to a quick break, and we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Meldon Law has been serving personal injury victims since 1971. In those days, Jeffrey Meldon's presence as an attorney in the music scene dubbed him with the nickname the Hippie Attorney. And although times have changed, two things haven't: our commitment to bettering our community by helping the injured,
Albert, are you ready to go to the game?
and our love for the Florida Gators.
If you bleed orange and blue, Meldon Law is the firm for you.
I am Black History.
I am Rosewood Black History.
I am Florida
and America's Black History, and you are too.
January 1st, 1923, the KKK insurrectionists attacked Rosewood, killing 5, burning it down.
Because a white woman lied and cried, a black man assaulted me. Rosewood redevelopment is on its way.
Want to help? Visit rosewoodflorida.com.
Welcome back to Queen Lizzie Podcast, brought to you weekly from the Steve Spurrier Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. We are here with Dekova Batey. The Queen Lizzie Podcast is brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union, live from the Meldon Law Gator Studios at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. Special thanks to Greg Bradley, Allstate Insurance. And we are back, and I call this my conversation piece, P-E-A-C-E, because I am seeking peace for the Rosewood victims, survivors, and descendants. We have to keep them elevated. Because of them, I am here today talking about what we need to do to improve relationship in our community. And I think we're doing an excellent job through Rosewood, which was such an ugly history. And my mom, and I say this often, mother said to me, my mom, the sister to the Rosewood school teacher, said to me often, don't attack anybody, just tell the truth, research, okay? Because the people living today did not cause Rosewood, okay? So you treat them with respect. And to the best of my ability, I do.
Excellent.
Yes.
And that's so important because as we learn history, we learn that sometimes the story has different perspectives.
Exactly.
Because though you have enslaved blacks, you also had persons who weren't considered equal to others because they were female.
Yes.
Or because they were not rich or didn't have a lot of resources or money. And so you learn that people can be classified based on many different things. So it's up to us to find common ground and allow there to be as much peace as possible so that we can advance further. So the way we're able to advance further is to connect. Even though in the past some of the same descendants had things that separated us, we leverage and try to grow and teach and get stronger. So those same descendants that had issues with us, we use some of their descendants to help bridge the gap. Just as you're saying, we have many different people who are helping to make this work, to make this foundation impactful. So I appreciate that type of work.
Exactly. And there were white people were slaves. They were lynched also. In fact, the first lynchings started in the 17th century. And they were basically lynches involving whites. I don't know all of the details. I read it. I have copies of it. I don't remember. But if you want to challenge me, then just Google it. and you can read what I am talking about. So there have been
Excellent.
wars and wars, fighting, and it's still going on today.
Wow.
All of our lives.
Wow.
And we're still working on trying to get the guns under control,
Mm-hmm.
which we are working on. Okay.
Well, that's one of my topics. So I'm born and raised here in Gainesville.
Okay.
Growing up as a young person, I had the opportunity going to Eastside High School, graduating in 1995. Mr. Rassiopi, I think, was my civics teacher. Mr. Frederick Peterkin was my government teacher, and they really put some history and some just connections into my understanding so that I can be more aware of my community. And ever since that youth, being part of advisory boards, being part of meetings, being part of neighborhood groups to find out what's going on, it's given me awareness of our current events. And such as you're saying, a lot of issues with violence, gun
Yes,
violence,
yes,
and
yes.
distractions with
Yes.
all type of things that hinder growth and development from being enslaved, from having disadvantages, from having all type of disparities. We're going to stay in that place if we don't grow, if we don't learn. And
Right.
so I try to do as much as I can to, especially educate our young people to be civically involved.
Exactly.
Know about your community by not just reading a book,
Right.
but volunteering,
Right.
being a part. And that's not going to come from young people. Young people aren't going to wake up and say, I want to volunteer. I want to learn about
Right.
the community. So we can't just put it on the school system. I know you're from the
Exactly.
education
We
community.
can't.
Our churches,
Yes.
our community centers, which I used to run a community center in the Porter's community 20-something years ago, had an opportunity to work with the young people. We took them on field trips to places like this to
Right.
learn about the community, to learn about how things operate.
Right.
When I worked with the University of Florida for
Yes.
10 years in my lifetime, saw some of the students who would, because they lived on campus, they had certain access and resources that taught them how to be a citizen, because UF itself was a small town.
Exactly.
And they had their own supervisor of elections, they had their own resources, and that kind of gave them a heads up on how to be a citizen. In our community, if we have students that aren't living on campus, we as different leaders need to expose these young people to opportunities to vote, for opportunities
You hit it right on the head.
to
Vote.
learn about going to a community meeting, maybe a civic
Exactly.
meeting, going to a different library. Maybe you've always went to libraries in Gainesville. Well, let's go to a Hawthorne or a High Springs library. Or let's go to a theater play in another town, maybe a school play at Santa Fe High School.
Yes.
Trying to make sure that these young people get different points of views of how they can be a part and empowered in their community, so that we have people who can say, hey, I want to be the next board member of the Real Rosewood Foundation.
Exactly.
Otherwise, it's going to be hard to connect those dots. So that's what I'm trying to do. Encourage our people, young and those more experienced, to be lined up so that they not only know about your program, but be willing to help to sustain it.
Right. Come in and just tell stories, take over if you want to. We need help. And like you say, violence, it's too much gun violence out there. And I have made an ad. I have an ad out there talking about gun violence. And
Right.
hopefully we will be able to control it. And I also, because something happened which sparked me to put a picture on my Facebook, because guns have been around for a long time. I remember when I was 18, my dad taught me how to shoot a gun.
Right.
My problem was I couldn't put my fingers in my ears and pull the trigger at the same time. That
Right,
was a
right.
problem. I shot that gun when I was
Technicality.
when I was 18, first and last.
Right.
Okay, Dad put it back, locked it back up in the shed. We've always been around guns, but parents were more responsible and protected. And I want you all to go on my Facebook, and I have a picture of me right here. If you don't
Awesome.
have anything, I'm holding a gun.
Okay.
I think it's fun, but the message is stay away from guns.
Right. Right.
My brothers were 16 when Dad taught them to shoot a gun. However, after the practice run, the one time, the guns were locked back. And we don't always do that. When you hear of children shooting guns, that's awful.
And you know what happens? The message goes to the parents that are connected and already active. So those who aren't connected to a lot of their leadership and their parents, they don't get that message. So guess who end up having all the guns and using the guns? And so we need to make sure, even though there's serious repercussions for having it, empower and train them how to use it appropriately, because if they want to become a law enforcement officer, they may need experience in using that gun.
Exactly.
And so there are ways that we can better impact our next generation by communicating, by getting them involved civically, doing things with them, as opposed to just saying, well, don't participate in anything.
Right.
No, we want them to be involved.
We want them
to be empowered.
Exactly, because as we say, guns, we know what guns will do. And the pain, the hurt is still there. And another reason I kind of like talked about guns, because whenever I hear about anyone being killed, and I let people know that in my article that it was guns that destroyed Rosewood.
Yes.
Okay. And I let people know, stay away from guns. And when we hear of people being killed, it hurts us just as much as the family.
Yes.
And
especially when it's continual in our community, when we hear it back to back, we have to do something. I sit on a lot of different meetings and what have you that's trying to address that. And it's not good enough just to say, well, let's just get together so that we can have an initiative or just have something to show that we're addressing it, but actually having discussions so that we can be effective and efficient. Sometimes bringing in people who have been victims, but also who have been perpetrators.
Right.
Talking to them, getting their input. A lot of times when we do things, we do it out of comfort. So we only engage with people who have a certain perspective or after something's happened tragic. But if we get people involved in every facet, that helps again to give a life lesson. Life is a classroom, and I'm ready to learn it, but we can't just do it in our own comfort. We have to find out what may be a way that we can learn and other can learn by, just being a little bit more outward,
passionate
open,
and outgoing and concerned for other people. Okay, because as we say, it is about us. Okay,
Right.
And I want you all to, when you follow my podcast, make sure you subscribe to it and share it with other people. It is not about me. Go to my Rosewood my Rosewood Foundation, rosewoodflorida.com, Rosewood, FLORIDA.com. Make a donation. I have a couple of books there to purchase. I'm working on my final book for Christmas. You will be able to give it or buy it and share it as a Christmas present. I'm not going to do a second book. This is going to be my final book. But make a donation to the museum, rosewoodflorida.com. Okay.
Wonderful.
And if you want to become a concurrent monthly donor, you have my permission to do that also. Is there anything else that you would like to?
Just want to thank you for the invite. And just like I told you, I'm an avid YouTube watcher and was watching one of the YouTube content creators. And in their chat, somebody was saying, hey, I'm going to be passing by. I'm going to go to see the Key area. I want to go see Rosewood. And I was trying to find the contact for that person to let you know. And in talking with you this morning, it may be that group has already visited just recently and you talk with them. Yes. So it just shows the reach that you have. I just saw somebody out of the blue on a website that was talking about you all, and you may have already connected with that person. So continue to do your outreach, continue to do your work, and I'll try to help and support as much as I can.
And you have done an excellent job supporting me, and thank you for sending a young lady to me this morning.
Yes.
I got an email from you. This is what we need. Okay, it's not about me, it's about us. It's about our history, keeping it active, keeping it preserved,
Yes.
okay, and passing it on to the next generations, because
Definitely.
that's who we are. Okay, I am continuously humbled, honored, and blessed to meet people daily and invite them to join in peace building, healing, and reconciliation through learning about the history of Rosewood. That will wrap up today's episode. I am Queen Lizzie. Until next time, this is my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you.
Thank you.